What's going on, everyone? Welcome in. Welcome in. Hopefully everyone's having a great afternoon. Let's have a little fun with this and go through the bracket piece by piece, and let's fill out that perfect bracket. This is one of my favorite things to do within sports, and from a handicapping perspective, it does differ a little bit, but I think this is relevant to do so because you're going to bet a lot of different games in the tournament that are going to kind of contradict your bracket per se. So let's see who's in the building. Let's welcome in everyone. Richard, what's up, Rich? Droops, Elijah, what's happening? Stoner, what's going on, man? Let's wait for some more people to come in. And while you guys are all watching live, the best thing you can do, let everyone know that we're doing this by hitting that like button. And obviously you guys are all subscribed. So that's awesome. And let's keep this one going. And please hit that. Sorry, I got a little reverb. And hit that like button. All right. We got 14 people in the house. As you guys get in here, say what's up. We got Bong Tokes in the building. M. Hernandez. Don't know your first name, but what's going on, man? Hopefully everyone is doing well. Hopefully everyone is out of work too. We only have a couple hours until that 6:40 play-in game starts off here in the East Coast. Gonna have a nice little afternoon. Got a couple cold ones. Gonna get the grill going. A couple buddies coming over to watch the games. It's really nice weather, so really looking forward to this evening. Hope you guys are as well. Really strong play for me too within that first game going under the total. I know that the betting line does agree with me in that one. If you guys watched the video earlier today, we are on the under, and the money does back me up as we've seen that number drop from 140.5 all the way down to 138.5 last time I checked. Donnie, what's up, man? Zach, Cartier, Bergman, what's up, guys? And hit those like buttons. Let's try to get more likes than you can imagine. If you don't do that with live streams, nobody cares that we're live. So I got you dead. What do you mean, Zach? So, yeah, let's get it. We're going to talk a lot of things different outside of betting in this because, like I said a little earlier, your bracket, at least when I do this, my bracket usually kind of contradicts a lot of the bets I will make. So keep that in mind. I do one bracket. It's a $200 entry, and it is a bracket of integrity. So that's kind of how I feel about it. If I lose, I lose. And if it goes according to plan, usually have a lot of good hedging opportunities within that pot as we get closer to the Final Four. Last year, I would have taken it all. It was either first place or fifth place within my bracket. Needed Purdue to beat Tennessee, and that would have did it. It would have been about, I think it was like a $6,000 pot too. It's a smaller group, but it's a big entry, so it does. It's kind of more my style. So let's get it. Let's get the board up here. Let me know in the comments. Is this going to be big enough for you guys? Please. I'm going to share with you guys this real quickly. We'll do this courtesy of ESPN as we look into their bracket. I'm sure you guys are using everything else, but let me know in the comments. Is this big enough for you guys to see? If it's not, I really don't know what to do to make it bigger. But if you guys can follow along, maybe I can zoom in on my end. Yeah, that'll work. All right, we'll do that. Okay. So Zach's from Massachusetts. Yeah, the Funky Bunch. I get it. I get that a lot. Bergman, I hate McNeese gets Clemson because I like Clemson this year, but that game's sketchy now for them. Yeah, it's going to come down, in my opinion, is the ACC overrated? We know Duke's good. We'll see what North Carolina brings to the table. But for me, guys, Clemson's a top 10 team, offense and defense. That'll be very interesting to see how they play out. I know they were upset last year. So there's a lot of teams that have revenge spots in this tournament. So that's going to be fun for me to watch. Whether or not those rosters carry over and we get a little culture effect, we'll see if that actually does sprinkle into or trickle down, I should say, into this year's field. Okay. But let's get it going. We are going to hit the South region first. And then I have a ton of insights. As you guys, if you haven't filled out your bracket yet, you probably shouldn't, because this is kind of a lot of research goes into this. And like I said, guys, one of my favorite things to do. So let's get into it. Thomas has a futures pick to win it all. Or I have a futures. Yes. I have a couple that are still outstanding from earlier on in the season. If you guys have been watching along throughout the course of the year, I did kind of drop some nuggets on some of the big futures numbers that I had that kind of right now look like some real good closing line value. But when I make futures bets for the bracket, I'm looking to bet off of them eventually. I don't usually ride them all the way. And yeah, so we'll save the questions to the end. Let's get through this bracket. And yes, Stoner, I only do one bracket. So I'm actually not going to submit this because my pool bracket, whatever, that is the official one, is I think it's through CBS. So I have to redo it. But yes, this will be kind of the same picks. So let's get the first one off the board. But I am going to go through some of the nuggets, and a lot of these I did get from my research, but also I am going to go over some of the ESPN ones. Okay. And let's start off with the first big nugget of kind of doing this. All right. And this is probably one of the crazier stats. In the last 10 tournaments, only one time the champion has came from the conference with the most bids. So shout out to the SEC with only 2 teams not making the bracket in the field of 64. That's going to be very interesting to see how that unfolds. But unfortunately, the SEC does have my winner, kind of a little sneak peek into that. So let's just get the first one off the board. Auburn, right? Alabama State and St. Francis. Great accomplishment to get here. Probably won't ever get back in a while for St. Francis. But this is going to be a little tune-up game for the Tigers in this one. And they have been trending in the opposite direction. At one point during the season, they were the number 1 overall team by the numbers, by the power rankings. And after that loss to Alabama and then losing in the SEC tournament, definitely did kind of go down the wayside for them in that spot. Okay. Next one. This is going to be an interesting game. Louisville and Creighton. Okay. How much is that Louisville Duke game in the ACC championship going to sprinkle into that momentum against Creighton? Now, Creighton, I love their coach. I love the offense that they're going to play, the style of basketball they'll bring to the table. Is Louisville back? Possibly. All right. So this is going to be a very tough game to not only handicap, but also kind of just pick an outright winner, because I think this one is a true coin flip. Creighton has been going in the opposite direction as well. And for me in this spot, guys, I'm going to have to go with the Blue Jays for me, as I want to see that Auburn-Creighton matchup in the second round. Okay. Next game is Michigan and UC San Diego. Now, this is going to come as a surprise for most people. We know about the Twin Towers for the Wolverines, but UC San Diego is one of the teams that a lot of people who aren't on the West Coast did not get the privilege of watching throughout the course of the season. Now, as a bettor, that is a team that I've followed quite religiously. A lot of those West Coast teams that we do talk about, and you want to kind of get into kind of why, well, they cashed a lot of tickets, and that's kind of what we're going to get into within this UC San Diego game, in my opinion. This is something where it's kind of impressive because they are very much new to Division I, and this is something where I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to fade the Big Ten champion, not only in my bracket, but also I'm going to fade them within the betting world, as well as I will be kind of getting involved with the points there with UC San Diego as one of my first round bets. And we're going to go with the upset, taking UC San Diego to take down the Wolverines. And another reason why I'm taking this risk is because it is a first round game. So the winner of this game, I don't see advancing past Creighton or Alabama, or Creighton or Auburn. Okay. That's the wrong team in Alabama. So keep that in mind. And also, the one thing that you have to understand, though, also, that comes down to it is when we talk 4 seeds, so we're talking Auburn, right? The Auburns of the world, Florida, we could talk 1 seed, so we're blue in the face. But I think this is something where they're not always going to be Final Fours, but I think that we may get a little bit more of a chalkier outcome this go round. Okay, so I am going with UC San Diego. It's important to understand too when we talk 12 seeds, at least one 12 seed has won in the first round in 33 of the 39 tournaments. So keep that in mind. So we are going with UC San Diego in this spot. Okay. 13 seeds, very similar, 28 out of the last 39 tournaments. And that's kind of where we have a great matchup between Texas A&M and Yale. Now, Yale, I will say something. They do have 2 very impressive players, and they have been a team that I've backed a lot. This is one that I'm looking at the points from a betting standpoint. Texas A&M, though, with Buzz, I just like the Aggies. I know they're the 4 seed. I know they're from the SEC. I know that we could talk numbers about 4 seeds, and you want to talk kind of the results. Well, one top 4 seed has lost in the first round in 15 of the 16 past tournaments. Okay, so this is something where I could see in prior years Yale with the upset. But I'm going to go not so fast. I like the way Texas A&M has been playing, albeit I would love to see a UC San Diego Yale 12-on-13 matchup in that second round. Okay, Ole Miss keeping it within the SEC. All right, this is going to be very interesting because I do think that this is going to be a interesting game to see play out, because I do think that the play-in game, as we talk about, this is something where I could see the Tar Heels. Okay. Kind of getting into it, right? And that's kind of where you look into the first 4 participants advancing to the second round, at least one of them. Okay, so that's where you look at even 5 reaching the Sweet 16. This is where we're going to go with North Carolina on the money line tonight. That would be the way I play this game. I think they get it done against San Diego State. I think they're going to have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. Okay, a lot of people think North Carolina shouldn't be in even the play-in spot. They've won 8 out of their last 10 games. 2 of the losses have come against Duke. 1 was with the flagless Blue Devils. But I still think that North Carolina gets it done. And I know if you take the jerseys, the logos off the jerseys, and you look at the Tar Heels at face value based upon resume, I don't think that this is something where the Tar Heels, or if it was any other team but North Carolina, they would have got this bid. So keep that in mind. But I still think North Carolina right now, last 10 games, they have recent form enough for me to back them in this spot. Okay. So Iowa State and Lipscomb. This is going to be Iowa State taking the Cyclones in this game. Lipscomb is probably my least favorite 14 seed in the field, full disclosure. And if you look at 14s versus 3, I believe it's like 21%. The 14s beat the 3 seed. So we'll probably get one of them, but I don't think it's going to come on behalf of Lipscomb in this spot. Love the way Iowa State's playing. They have kind of faded themselves late in the season. You saw that against BYU. And that's kind of where I think that losing kind of gets it out of the way. And I think when you lose in that conference tournament, it may actually give you a leg up on some of the squads that had to win their conference tournament. I know some people think, let's just keep winning. Let's just keep the momentum going. I think that Iowa State gets this one done. And I like the fact that they're coming off a loss. They're going to be hungry in this spot. Marquette, New Mexico, going to go with the opposite here. I like New Mexico. Simply put, I think they play a better brand of basketball. Marquette, very impressive at times, but excuse me, how good is the Big East? Okay. They had a couple ugly losses. We faded them late, cashed some tickets on that as well. But I like New Mexico here. And I do like them with the points as well to advance another 10/7. So give me the Marquette loss in the first round as the Golden Eagles. As we look into it, this will be one of the probably more heavily bet games, handles, whatever you would like to call it. The number did open 4.5. We have taken some New Mexico money, but I did like New Mexico plus 4.5 early on. Okay. Michigan State and Bryant. Let's just get this one out of the way. Bryant is one of those squads that impressive kind of story, but I just think that the same thing goes for Iowa State as it does Michigan State. That loss, take Izzo into the equation. I think that the Spartans are going to be very, very hungry, looking to avenge that unfortunate loss as we saw them kind of bail out of the Big Ten tournament. One of the hotter teams in college basketball as well. That's a no-brainer for me. Let's take them to advance, obviously, with that huge point spread. Now, let's just finish out this region, okay? Auburn and Creighton, that's where we're going to have to go with the Tigers here to advance. I know it's chalky. We'll take the one. I just think that they're going to be a little bit too much for Creighton, and I think they're going to be ready to go in that spot. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Okay, UC San Diego going against Texas A&M. I really want to pull that card, right? We look at some of the storylines here. Wade Taylor, we talk about kind of his presence there for the Aggies. It seems like he's been there for quite some time, but this is another game where I have to be honest with you guys. I really, truly like San Diego in this one. Will it be enough? That'll be the true question. I think it's going to be a great game, but in the end, I think that the Aggies do prevail. So give me the 4 seed Texas A&M to get out unscathed, but I don't think it's going to be as close as people are would be expecting in that matchup. Okay. We got Zach in the chat. What's up, man? Next, let's get into the game that we'll have featured with North Carolina and Iowa State. Now, this is going to come as a surprise to most, okay, because we do get that conversation. Like I said, guys, there has been a play-in team make the Sweet 16, and I think this is something where we do get this one come to fruition. All right, so I'm going to back the Tar Heels in this spot. We're going to take North Carolina to get this job done. I know it's a little bit chalky. The only thing that does really worry me about this is if they were to lose the San Diego State, it could bust your bracket. Okay, so maybe a little bit more of a, I guess you would say, chalky pick, going with the Tar Heels in the postseason, but I do think this is something where we have to look for this upset. We have to find them somewhere. So give me North Carolina to make the Sweet 16 and kind of really turn some heads as we get deeper in the tournament. And what better way to couple North Carolina in the Sweet 16 other than a matchup against Michigan State in that spot? And that's kind of where I look for Izzo and company to get even deeper, as I will be taking Michigan State to beat North Carolina. Lockdown defense, plays with momentum, clutch factor at a premium. And I think that Michigan State, if they can make shots from the outside, they're going to be a very tough out in the postseason. So give me the Spartans to reach the Elite Eight. And that's where they're going to have an inevitable matchup that I think that everybody wants to see. We're going to go Auburn and Michigan State meeting up in the Elite Eight. Okay. And then from there, guys, this is where we get a little tricky. I know with the big man down there for Auburn, we could talk Johnny Broom. For me, guys, I think that Auburn's trending in the wrong direction with Bruce Pearl, what he's able to do. It's going to be a different brand of basketball they're going to have to play against Michigan State. Michigan State's going to scrap one of the most athletic players in the country. And I think they're going to be able to meet the athleticism in the SEC. And that's where I'm going to take Michigan State to advance to the Final Four with the first 1 seed that I have falling with the Spartans reaching the Final Four. And that's going to be one that a lot of people will be like probably, I guess you would say that's where I'm going to make up the most ground on people because it is a trendier pick taking Michigan State, but they've been my pick for a while now. And there are some very sharp people that I have heard on podcasts and other places that are fading the Spartans in the postseason. But for me, I watched them play a ton of basketball, and when everybody gives them their best, if they're making shots, they will do well. And that's where I think that the style and brand of basketball, the intensity, the heart, the effort, it's going to be something where Auburn, they're going to have to play a perfect game to beat Michigan State, in my opinion. And I could be wrong. Auburn could play like the earlier season Auburn Tigers that we've seen, and they could just cakewalk all the way through to the national championship game. For me, though, I got to kind of go outside the box. So give me Michigan State in that spot. Now, let's go over across the board. We're going to head into the East region. And this is going to be the one that's going to be really interesting. And the reason why is because, yes, Cooper Flagg will be playing. He will be back. I don't think it's going to be kind of a issue in the first round, even if he doesn't play, because the reserves, and I don't even really want to call them reserves, but the 7-8 man rotation that Duke does deploy probably could be a starting five on a lot, probably 80-90% of the college basketball teams. And I think a lot of programs would welcome that with open arms. Okay. But for me, guys, this is a no-brainer. We're going Duke in probably a blowout kind of game, going against American in Mount St. Mary's. The interesting thing, though, is who wins that game. Okay, we do get that one tomorrow. I've been a big Mount St. Mary's guy, but I've also been a big American guy. So that's more so going to be a coin flip. I do think American gets it done coming out of the Patriot League. Outstanding season they've had. But I think that ultimately they will meet their match when they do face Duke. Okay. The interesting game below them is Mississippi State and Baylor. Now, the reason why is Baylor is one of the at-large, they are one of the teams with 14 plus losses. Okay, and since 2011, there have been 15 previous teams. Okay, to earn at-large bids despite having 14 games. Baylor comes in as a 9 seed with 14 losses, as well as Texas. Keep that in mind for later on. But I don't think it's going to be Baylor in terms of one of the at-large with 14 losses to win their first round game. Okay, so 5 of the past 6 have won. But I do think Mississippi State will play well enough to win this game. Very athletic squad. Look for Mississippi State to advance. And that's pretty much as close to a coin flip as you can get. I do like Baylor, but I just think that the brand and the class in the SEC is really going to prevail, okay, at least for a short moment in time, okay? Oregon and Liberty. This is an exciting 5 versus 12 game, okay? A lot of people had futures money on Oregon to win the Big Ten. They did serve up that shocking loss, and if they're capable of doing that, they're capable of beating Liberty. But for me, guys, this is going to be an interesting one, okay? And as we get deeper into it, I want to kind of talk about why, okay? And I'm going to find my numbers very, very quickly. Oregon is a -7 favorite hosting Liberty here in this. They are the higher seed, and that's what I mean by that. But this number got bet up a ton, up from 5 to 7.5. Oregon's taken the lion's share of money early. However, it's important to understand they're also printing a lot of public tickets. So there's a vast majority of the handle on Liberty. Okay, so Liberty is the sharper side. Keep that in mind. So Liberty plus 6.5. This is something where you got to understand the Ducks here, right? I think this is something where they don't really understand, I guess maybe the Big Ten thing, West goes East, whatever. I think that does skew a lot of the numbers in the Big Ten if we're going to use those and apply them to kind of what we're doing in our brackets. But I think that's something to be said about Oregon is this is not going to be a cakewalk, okay? And Liberty is going to be one of those teams I think is a live dog. So give me Liberty, all right? Give me Liberty in this one. We're going to go a little upset fashion against the Ducks. So I do have the Flames kind of winning this one out. And Liberty has won a very long stretch of games, but I don't think this is going to be something coming easy. But I think that you look at them winning, I think like 10 of their last 11 games. I know it's a weaker conference in the Big Ten, but by the numbers, Liberty is a top 50 team, okay? And that's something when we look into defense, and I just think that that's the style of brand you're going to want to play. Slow the game down, limit the possessions. I think Liberty's a live dog as a 6.5 point favorite. Let's follow the money a little bit on this one as the line is moving with the public, but the sharps are all over the Flames in the spot. So give me Liberty here. And there's something to be said about taking the underdogs in any kind of basketball game. Do not bet underdogs that you don't think can win outright, okay? If you're taking 6.5 points because you think the game's going to be a 5-point game, that's not a good recommendation for me. Liberty's done very well on a neutral court as well, covering 78% of those games, 15-4 on the road or neutral. And as an underdog, 5-0 ATS on the season. So give me the Flames to upset Oregon in the first round. Next game is another one where we could get a little bit weird. This is where you get the Zips, and the Zips are one of the teams that have taken a lot of sharp money early on as Arizona is coming to town, and Arizona is one of those teams that they can win this game by 30, and they can also lose it, okay? So it's going to be very interesting. I would recommend taking Akron with the points, kind of following the money on that one as well. 14.5 is the number. And there's a reason why that number hasn't moved. Well, it's because there's a lot of money on the Akron Zips in the spot. Undoubtedly, one of the better teams. They showed they could win close games, comeback games against Miami of Ohio when they were down, I believe, 20-plus points in that MAC championship. But that's something where the Liberty Flames might be hosting the 13 seed here in the field of 32. Do not be surprised if Akron upsets Arizona. However, we are going to keep it kind of kosher here and just trust the numbers. I think Akron is a live dog. I don't think they're going to win the game, but it would not shock me if they did. So I will be taking the 14.5 with the Zips, and I do think Arizona ultimately does win in this spot. But keep that in mind. If Akron does pull this one out, you heard it here first, okay? BYU and VCU, that's one of the best matchups I think we get in the first round, 6 versus 11. And this is something where VCU, they play really good basketball. And we all know about them in March. I know that they don't have Shaka Smart anymore, but that's something where you look at the University of Brigham Young, and I just think that they're capable of putting on a performance like they did. And I believe that was against Kansas. Yes, it was, where BYU just completely dismantled Kansas. They can fire it up, okay? So this is a very tough call. It's a game where, quite frankly, I wish I didn't have to pick it. And the reason why is I want to see both of these teams advance, but unfortunately, they have to play each other in the first round. But for me and my money, guys, I think that the way to bet this one, and it's almost a pick 'em as we look at VCU is a slight underdog, plus 135 right now on the money line. But this is something where I think BYU is just playing really good basketball. So give me Brigham Young to advance, and that's where the Cougars get onto the field of 32. Now, Wisconsin and Montana. This is going to be something where Montana can play basketball. Do not get it twisted, okay? The interesting thing about it is I think that Montana is live against anybody but Wisconsin. All right. And that's where I see the Badgers getting this one done. Unfortunately, I think that they should have won the Big Ten. They blew that late lead against Michigan, and that is alarming. But one thing to keep in mind is they shot almost 25% the whole game in that contest. Wisconsin makes free throws. They missed a couple late. This is the exact team that you want to have kind of riding into the big dance in the way that they play basketball. And we're going to kind of get this one out of the way. We are going to take Wisconsin over BYU. That's a team that I do like to advance in that spot. St. Mary's and Vanderbilt. Okay. Now, this is going to be very interesting because Vanderbilt is a very good team at home. Now, the 10 seed goes on a neutral venue, and St. Mary's, I think this is going to be something where it's going to be a clash of two styles. All right. I just want to see how St. Mary's plays this game. It's going to be very fascinating. One of the best matchups we get as well out of the same region. And I do think St. Mary's gets this one done. I think this is very impressive what they're able to do. And some of the St. Mary's betting, I shouldn't say betting, but the bracket stats with them in Gonzaga, it's very interesting to see how that plays out. But probably the most impressive statistic in all of sports is the fact that I think dating back to the late 90s, St. Mary's and Gonzaga have played each other in that conference championship dating back almost 30 years. It's actually really fascinating. I don't think there's a better kind of statistical trend in all of sports, okay? Next, Alabama and Robert Morris. Now, this is a game that a lot of people are not going to count out the Horizon League as I do look for the Colonials to kind of do the same thing that I expect Akron to do to Arizona. Alabama, as we know, tempo-wise, one of the fastest kind of more, kind of air raid kind of offenses that do play in the college game. And it's going to be very interesting because they have the experience factor. They are coming off an ugly loss as well. And I could see Alabama really doing some damage here in the postseason. But I do think that this is going to be a lot closer maybe than what meets the eye. So do not be shocked if the Colonials keep this one close. Potentially even very much a lower scoring affair as well, just early on lean in that game. But I do think that Alabama ultimately gets it done. But do not be surprised if Robert Morris gets people. They're either going to lose by 30 or this one's going to be a close one. So Robert Morris, very interesting matchup they got in the first round against Alabama. And kind of a bad draw for them as well. I'd really like to see them match up against other 2 seeds. But Robert Morris, Alabama is going to definitely be an intriguing one to watch unfold. Okay. And that being said, guys, St. Mary's versus Alabama, I'm going to go with the Crimson Tide in that one. I think that Alabama will get that one done and advance against the 7 seed St. Mary's. We already penciled in Wisconsin. And then the next ones we're going to get into is Duke. Obviously, I will take them all day, twice on Sunday against Mississippi State. I think by then, Cooper Flagg will be almost close to 100%. And even if he's not, I think that without him, they still could outlast Mississippi State in this one. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Liberty versus Arizona. Okay, now this goes back to the other region where if you do take the 12 to beat the 5, what happens in the next round? Because if I go with Liberty over Arizona here, it really comes down to do you really want to lose a first and second round game if Oregon were to win and then ultimately beat Arizona, which I think that Oregon does match up well against Arizona, and I could see the Ducks winning that game. But this goes down to the same kind of conversation. I think that Liberty is live in this spot as well. So we're going to talk about it. I want to find the quick number on this one before we get a little bit ahead of ourselves. Okay. And I think this is something where you have to look into the Flames. I just think that this is a great basketball team. You want to talk about them a little bit more in depth. 24-6 on the season, 20-11 ATS. And I kind of want to find Liberty kind of playing some early on non-conference matchups just to before I get a little bit out of character and kind of get crazy with it. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to, but let's try it. So let's look up Liberty real quick. I just want to see if they're able to kind of hold serve in this. So let's check out their schedule real quick. Okay, so this is kind of where we're going to have to go up, and you can see early on, yeah, they really didn't have any good non-conference opponents. So that's going to be very interesting. But in this spot, guys, I do think that Liberty has a shot, but I'm going to have to go with Arizona. I think that they are more equipped to win this game, so I will take Arizona over Liberty. As much as I want to take the 12 to advance, I am going to go with Arizona. And then ultimately Duke gets it done, as we all expect. And then I do want to talk about this one because I think that Wisconsin and Alabama would be probably the best Elite Eight game that we get, in my personal opinion, if we do get this. And that's kind of where I actually rather even see Wisconsin St. Mary's because it would make this pick a lot easier. And that's kind of where I really don't want to have 1 versus 2. But I do think that there's something to be said about how Wisconsin plays down the stretch. They play late. They play hungry. They play their own style of basketball. So give me the Badgers to upset Alabama in the Elite Eight. Okay. Next, this is going to be a very kind of familiar pick. We are taking Duke to make the Final Four. So the 1 seeds come out of the East and the South to get it done in those 2 Final Four teams. Okay. So let's go down to the West, which I think is going to be probably, in my opinion, the more easy bracket to do in a sense. Just from a draw perspective, I think that potentially the South might be the easiest, in my opinion. But the West does add some, I guess you would say, some breaths of fresh air because I do like Florida quite a bit. So at least we're going to get that one probably no questions asked. I don't see a way that Florida does not make the Final Four. Okay. And full disclosure, it would not shock me if Duke did lose. I just want to get that out of the way. Just a young team. You just quite frankly don't know the health concerns of Cooper Flagg. So do not be shocked if they do get upset. But if they play their best game, I don't think anybody can touch them until they get into the national championship. Okay. UConn and Oklahoma. This is going to be a fascinating game. We talked a little bit about the at-large teams within Baylor, or I think it was Baylor and Oklahoma. Or no, it's Baylor and Texas. Okay, so those are the 14 lost teams, but Oklahoma is one of the at-large bids to go alongside Texas. Yeah, first at-large team to finish with more than 4 games under 500, and that's something where you look into the fact that they are 5-1 in the first round. Now, this is going to be very hard to bet against UConn in the first round. Okay, and guys, keep the comments going. I know you guys are listening along, but keep the comments going if you guys have anything you want to add. Now, I really, really want to take Oklahoma, but I'll tell you what, they just played so bad during the regular season at times that this is a very hard thing to do. But I will take the Huskies to advance just purely based on pedigree, and that's pretty much the only logic that I can give you in that spot. And also, I'm not a big Oklahoma Sooners believer when it comes to the basketball court, okay? Obviously, we're going to take Florida over top UConn. And then we do get a great matchup with Memphis and Colorado State, and it's unfortunate with the injuries that Memphis had. Basically, I think their best players out for this matchup and probably the tournament. But I would have liked to see them at full strength because I think that Memphis is a very underrated basketball team as we look at the Tigers in this spot. And so does Colorado State have something to say about that, okay? And that's just kind of the simple logic to this is this might be the best first round game we do get, okay? And that's kind of where we look into the Rams 25-9, 21-13 ATS. Memphis comes in 29-5, not the best record ATS, but I do think that we look into kind of the money line here. A lot of people are taking Memphis to advance, and I think that's kind of where you're going to find me backing Penny in this one as we take Memphis to advance, albeit I really want to take the Rams. I just think it's too much of a trendy dog for me. So give me the Memphis Tigers to get it done. Now from there, guys, I love Maryland. I have them in a futures bet at very high odds. I think 40-1 to win it all. And that's kind of where I just think that the offense that Maryland does play, if they play their best game, they can really beat anybody in the field. From a points per game perspective and efficiency perspective. Defense is really what gives me worries. Just how they lost to Michigan was absolutely horrendous with that inbounds play. But I do think this is where I got to go with my gut. I got to go with the Terrapins in this. So give me the Maryland squad to advance and get this one done, okay? Next, Missouri and Drake, another 6 versus 11 SEC squad. I think Drake's live in this. I'm going to go with Drake to get it done in advance. This will be an upset for me. Drake is a very trendy dog as well. I think just people don't really understand how good at basketball Drake is. So give me Drake in this spot in the first round to take down the Missouri Tigers. A lot of Tigers in the field of 64 as well. Probably the heaviest. Probably the heaviest mascot, if you will. Okay, UNC Wilmington, they could play basketball, but I just think Texas Tech gets healthy, and I do like Texas Tech a lot. So I do like Texas Tech to get this one done. But ultimately, I'm going to go with the upset as well in this one. I think Drake gets this one done and beats Texas Tech. They're kind of my diaper dandy of this bracket. So give me Drake over Texas Tech in that second round matchup. Okay. Kansas and Arkansas. We're going to go with Arkansas here. I think Calipari's finally getting healthy. Kansas, we all know, preseason number 1, early season number 1. They beat Duke. We all know that, but it's just not there for whatever reason. Okay. They could put a game together and maybe beat Arkansas, but I think Arkansas is getting healthy at the right time, and I will take the Razorbacks. So go Hogs against the Jayhawks. Okay. St. John's and Omaha. This is another interesting kind of 2 versus 15 game where I hate to tell you guys, I know everybody's jumping on the Rick Pitino bandwagon, but I do have a feeling that Omaha is live in this game, okay? But I am going to go with the Johnnies here. Give me St. John's to get this one done. The only thing about St. John's is, yes, they play great defense, but if they're not hitting their threes, anybody can hang around, and I do think Omaha can score with the best of them. So do not count out Omaha in that spot. That's one of the 15s that I think has a chance, but I do think St. John's prevails, advances, and then we are going to get St. John's Arkansas matchup where I am going to go with St. John's to get this one done as well. And then ultimately, I think St. John's outlasts Drake, where we will see that kind of take place. The only thing I will tell you guys is this could be the 11 seed, the I guess you'd say chalky team to make the Elite Eight. I could see Drake kind of just being that diaper dandy team of this season. Okay, and then from there, guys, we got to go Florida. That's pretty much cut and dry for me to make the Final Four. Okay, let's start at the bottom for this bracket. 2 seed Tennessee hosting Wofford. Won't even be close in my opinion. So give me the Volunteers to get this one done. Next game, I do like UCLA quite a bit, but there is a lot of sharp money on Utah State. However, I do want to tell you guys that the Bruins have been one of my least favorite teams to bet for or against. Cost me a ton of money this season being on the losing side of those tickets. We've cashed a couple, but on the other hand, there has been some games, like, for example, the UCLA game against, I want to say, Northwestern, where they had a 11, 12-point lead at halftime, and then ultimately, or no, it was Minnesota, UCLA, Minnesota. Cost me a pretty decent penny on the back end of a parlay on a late West Coast game where the Bruins basically just completely shit down their leg. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think that UCLA though, to advance against Utah State is a fair bet and a good pick for me. And ultimately, I do have Tennessee winning that matchup. Okay, Kentucky and Troy. This is another one where if you want to get in some late or some early underdogs, I do like Troy with the points. I'm just being honest with you guys without doing too much of a deep dive. Kentucky's coming off a very, very ugly loss to Alabama, 99-70. And before that, guys, barely beating Oklahoma. They do have a very good, their best player is very, very good, very athletic, kind of the guy you want in this position to kind of ride that horse, I guess you would say, in a bracket setting. But I just don't see it, quite frankly, for the Wildcats. And I just think that the men of Troy have a very strong chance to get this one done. Good wins at James Madison recently, in the tournament. And then you could talk about some of the other ones. But I think Troy in this spot is very much live, getting 11.5 in this matchup, okay? But there also is a very strong chance that Troy could upset Kentucky, okay? This is probably one of the better money line picks for a 14 seed. And I hate to say it, but it is something I do think is live. Okay. So that's kind of where I'm at. Will they get the win in advance? Time will tell. But Troy versus Kentucky, a very intriguing first round matchup where I really don't want to bet against Kentucky. I just really don't want to take too many 14 seeds. Like I talked about earlier, there's only 21% of them do win that first round. But ultimately, I do think that Kentucky gets this one done. Okay. Illinois, Texas, Xavier. Now, this is interesting because I am a big Xavier guy. Backed them a lot late in the season. Texas and Xavier going against Illinois. This is where we're going to fade Illinois. I just want to take this because I do think that regardless of who advances, I think that they do have a strong shot in this play-in that we will be able to finalize the outcome. I do think that Texas ultimately does beat Illinois. Not a big fan of the Illini. Just a couple real ugly losses. And I think that Texas is playing good. I know I see a comment from Gary fading Texas. I got you on that one, but I'm going to go with them in this spot. Give me the 11 seed to come out against Illinois. Purdue and High Point. That's another game that a lot of people have kind of circled as a must-watch. High Point taking the points. I think it's their first appearance, and it may not be their last, but I do like the Boilermakers to kind of have that revenge factor from getting upset. So give me the Boilermakers to advance, although I do like a High Point in the points a little bit more than others. I still think Purdue gets this one done. Now, this is probably the 12 versus 5 that everybody's going to be watching. Like I talked about earlier, Clemson, top 10 team, offense and defense. How good is the ACC, though? How good is that depth? McNeese, I don't really know how another way to put it, but they can play some basketball. Okay, they can play some basketball. And as we talk about the Clemson Tigers, will they be upset yet again in the March Madness field of 64? That's going to be the big storyline. But for me, guys, I think that this is something as we look into it, I could see this potentially being a very, very closer game than people think. Is it enough to beat Clemson? I think this is going to be a very close game. And for that, I'm going to go with McNeese to pull off the upset, okay, and get this one done. And then this will be kind of where we get a little weird, all right? I'm going to take McNeese over Purdue. I think they get to the Sweet 16. We're going to back them to get this job done and not look back. I know a lot of people could have the Boilers winning. But that's where this gets fun, and that's why this is the March Madness, as they like to call it, okay? Gonzaga over Georgia. I do like the way the Zags are playing late. We'll take that one. Houston, ultimately, this is where McNeese will meet their end, and Houston does reach the Elite Eight, and then we get ultimately a matchup where I do think Tennessee and Houston square off. And I know it's all ones versus twos, except for kind of North Carolina and Wisconsin a little bit, but in my Elite Eight. But that's kind of how I see it happening. So with that, guys, we will take Texas to advance here. Ultimately, we do get that Texas-Tennessee rematch. I think Tennessee gets it done. And then Houston-Tennessee, I really do like what Houston brings to the table. And then from there, guys, we got all ones except for Michigan State. And then from here, this is where the time to put boots on the ground and really put it on the table. And this is kind of where you have to make your picks. This is where it gets really interesting, okay? And from here is my bracket. This is what I have happening. I got Florida, and I really want to take Houston against Duke, fading the young squad. I think Duke's going to be very popular, but ultimately I do think Houston, Florida do match up, although everybody's going to want to see Florida and Duke squaring off. I don't know. I watched Kelvin Sampson. I watched this Houston club, and I've said this for a long time. I think that Houston is that team this year that plays that very, very ferocious defense, but the thing that's different for me with them this year is they're shooting the three ball at a exceedingly better rate. And that's kind of where I like the Houston Cougars to ultimately make the national championship game. That will lead me to my pick where we take the Florida Gators, who I just think, quite frankly, are the best team in the country. And that's what we're going to go with. And that being said, against Houston and Florida, the good thing about Florida is they can kind of play any style of football, or not any style of football. They're pretty sorry in football, but any style of basketball they need to. They very much do morph into it. And I think that what that means is Houston's going to want to play a defensive game, slow down game. They do play a little more tempo than you would think based on the totals that they do get out. But I think that this is something where even if it's lower scoring, I'm going to go with a score of 136 in this matchup. And that's kind of where I'm going to be at. So I will kind of enter this just because we're here. But that is my picks and my bracket of integrity. So with that, I'll open back up the chat. Let me know what you guys are thinking, and we'll go back up to that full screen, and we'll get to talking about your guys's comments. All right, so drop them down below, and let's get it going. How bad was that bracket? Let me know in the comments. Yeah, I'm with you, Thomas. I've been reading a lot of your comments. I know you've been on Florida. What's up, Travis? Just finished out the bracket. And yes, Florida is plus 350 right now on ESPN Bet to win it all. I will tell you guys, though, I don't advocate taking that. If I had to recommend how to bet Florida to win it, I would just absolutely pound the SEC conference to win it all. I think it's minus 140. And instead of putting 100 or putting a unit on Florida to win it all, I would probably just put 3 units on the SEC to have the champion. Or you'd have to put like 3 or 4 or 5 even at minus 140. But I just think you get way more value because you have Tennessee, you have Alabama, you have Auburn, and the Gators. Is the Texas pick to hedge in case Kentucky loses early? Kind of. I did that on the other side as well with North Carolina. But yes, I'm with you on that one, Travis. But that's where I'm at. The only place that I do have cause for concern is I'm a little chalky in the Elite Eight. But I do have some 12s and 11s getting through 2 rounds, and that's enough for me. I don't need to get too crazy. And when I do my brackets, like I said, I play with a smaller field. I'm not going against thousands of entries where you have to be perfect. So I kind of have to go chalky and just be right with the chalk. Because you don't get that many points for picking a first round upset. And that's just kind of my thought. So, it may look bad and ugly early on, but then as the bracket progresses, you do get to see the leaderboard and see where everything stacks up. And that's where you can find really these Elite Eight games having a lot of meaning. But like I said, there's 30 to 50 people that get into my bracket. It's a $200 entry, and it's only 1 entry per person. So it's kind of like, daily fantasy logic, where if you're playing a cash game versus a tournament play, I'm not playing a tournament bracket. I'm essentially playing a cash bracket. So heard some very good insight too. The Mountain West. All right. The Mountain West, I think they're 21-1 winning a game. So first round, at large, whatever, 21-1. Okay. 21-1, I believe, or 22-1, 21-2, winning the first game that a Mountain West participant plays in. So, or losing. They do not win. The Mountain West does not win in the tournament. So that's kind of interesting. So if you believe in, the trends, fade the Mountain West. And that's kind of where you look at tonight's game being one of those key points. So, if you believe in that, you believe in the trends, that says that San Diego State will not beat North Carolina. Most likely not. So, have to agree with you, Travis. I think it is going to be chalky. I said that a little bit earlier back in the season, just watching this all unfold. It's just really top heavy, and I watch a lot. I mean, if you guys bet college basketball, you understand that there's a lot more value in taking the smaller, less popular games that have heavier handles and reading between the lines. And in doing so, you get to watch a lot of lower end conferences. Not saying that they can't play basketball. It's just like, for example, Yale. This is not the Yale team that makes a run that we've seen in previous years. Still the Yale team that won the Ivy League, but just not as good as the previous Yale teams that we've seen go far, in my opinion. I could be wrong. So, that being said, guys, if you guys have no more comments, I'm going to wrap this one up. We went almost an hour, kind of took the sales out of me. I got to get bets ready for tonight, finalize everything going in that in those 2 games. Like I said, lean North Carolina money line. Not liking the 4.5, but it's a lot of juice for the money line. And best bet of the night is the under in the first game, but closing line value is an issue because that number has fallen 2 points. But I don't think that game gets into the 130s. So I do think there is a little bit of an edge still taking the under. I actually do have an official play. I parlayed North Carolina money line with the under, and I got it at 140.5. So got some early value in that. Pays about plus 150. So we'll see how that parlay turns out. But got some. I think it's Tokyo. Got some baseball happening. Some early regular season games. That's going to be interesting. I don't get involved until they come back into the States. But yeah, that's where 6:10 a.m. If you want to watch the Dodgers play the Cubs. So shout out to that. That's going to be a lot of great featured players for that country. Obviously it's going to be great seeing Ohtani playing that. Plus they have some other acquisitions. So that'll be a fun one. I'll be sure to watch the highlights, but I won't be up at 6:10 watching baseball. I can tell you that. Arsenic. Yeah, send it over in Discord. I'll take a peek, but it's a crapshoot, just like you'd expect. But with that being said, guys, I got to go. Dinner time here at the household. Enjoy the games tonight. As always, appreciate you. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please do. And we do have some links down below if you want to get involved with some of our sponsors. OUTLIER is a great tool, not just for betting, but also fantasy. Make sure you check that out. Let me know what's up in the Discord. We'll be on that a little bit later on this evening. And it's that time of year. Enjoy it. Thanks, everyone.